Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. This is the Thursday AMA. But before we start, I need to let everyone know the link. So it's going to take a few minutes. So if you're watching this in the future, then maybe just skip to like the 3 or 4 minute mark, which is hopefully when we'll actually start, rather than just waiting for me to get everything up and running. So just give me a couple minutes. Okay. I think some people are starting to join. All right, and then let me just send out the email, and then we should be good to go. All right. All right, I think we're good to go. Let me just pull up the chat so I can see everyone here. All right, so I just wanted to use this. It's Thursday again, so I figured we would just kind of go through, answer some questions. Obviously, people always have questions, and I miss a lot of them in the Telegram chat room. So this is probably a good place to respond to a lot of the questions. And also, I will go through some of the questions on the Telegram group, because I asked people to put out questions if they had any. So let me see, what questions do we have? How old am I? I'm 31. I'm 31. How long do I recommend stacking cash for? You know, it's a good question. I always think about that, because one of the issues, I mean, there are some issues with stacking cash, right? I mean, with inflation, the value of your cash is losing its value, right, over time. So, you know, when I say stack cash, what I'm doing is I'm putting it into stable coins, and then I'm earning interest. Okay, so I would recommend, if you are stacking cash, try to be earning some interest on it so that you can at least try to fight off inflation. In terms of how long to stack cash for, you know, when we're in a general risk-off environment, which we have been for the last few months, I would say there's not really a time frame that I say, okay, you need to stack cash until this specific date. It's just until the macroeconomic outlook changes. I mean, I still think you should always have a cash position on hand, but when we're in a risk-off environment, which is what we're in right now, then I still think stacking cash makes sense. Okay, so it's hard to. I mean, I would say it more than likely at least through the end of the quarter, and probably going some into Q2 as well is what I'll generally think. But certainly during these times, I think stacking cash makes sense, because there's just so much uncertainty right now with the markets from like a macroeconomic perspective. If you look at the stock market, we're still not yet sure if they're going to put in a lower low or a higher low, right? Like, are they going to hold here and then trend higher, or are they going to come down here and then put in a lower low? And I don't know. Like, I don't know what they're going to do, but what I do know is that whatever happens over here will impact the crypto market. So if it comes down, stacking cash makes sense. And if it comes up, I mean, stacking cash still makes sense, because Bitcoin is probably needs to get healthy before altcoins can rally. So you can always put money into altcoins later if Bitcoin does in fact rally, which it hasn't done yet. Okay. So I don't have a specific timeline on how long it makes sense to stack cash for. I mean, obviously, I've been saying it for the last couple of months. My guess is I'll probably be saying it for at least a couple more months, if I'm just sort of speculating. Again, I'm still picking up a decent amount of Bitcoin, but a lot of long-term holders are. You know, it's not just me. you can look at on-chain metrics and see that long-term holders are accumulating. That's sort of like a consolation prize though if the price goes down, right? Like, but the thing is that the long-term holders accumulate regardless if the price goes down, because they just wait for the parabolic rally, which we had in late 2020 and early 2021, and we haven't had one since then. And therefore, people have been accumulating ever since, even though we've had, pretty nasty sell-off. So yeah, I'm mainly just accumulating Bitcoin. I pick up a little bit of ETH, but not a lot. Mainly just Bitcoin and stacking cash. And I think I would say it's probably going to be like that for at least a couple more months, if not longer. So hopefully that answers that question. What happened with Bitcoin? Well, easy come, easy go, as they say. I mean, it's back down to 42K, right? And hasn't moved a whole lot. And this is why I've stressed before. Any pump that does not get us above the bull market support band and then holding it as support should not really be respected. Just the other day, someone asked me why I wasn't posting messages during Bitcoin's rally from 42K to 44K. And the reason is because it just doesn't matter. Like, these rallies don't matter. Until we're back up here, it doesn't matter. Okay, so the point is don't get overexcited about short-term pumps. Wait until we actually show strength, and then we can get excited about the market. But until then, we still reside comfortably below the bull market support band, which, by the way, now ranges from around 46.2K up to around 50.7K. So maybe 46K to 51K is more or less where it ranges from. Will we be updating the ITC mobile app with all the new charts and features? We will, but it's not our priority at the moment. Our priority at the moment is just getting the website updated with as much stuff as possible. Win house tour? I'm not really sure why you need a house tour. It's pretty bland in this house. This basement's pretty empty. Cody says AVAX is 40% of his portfolio. How do I DCA? Oh, how does he DCA puts when it unlocks? I mean, if you're looking to sell, or I mean, I guess it depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you want to, I mean, there's certainly different types of the markets we could talk about. But if you're looking to sell it, I would say one strategy, if 40% is too high, which I agree, 40% is too high for an altcoin, you could sell a small percentage, either back to cash, back to Bitcoin, and then wait. And then you could just sell, a certain percentage every week, but make sure you keep a certain amount in case we do continue to rally. Normally what I would do is I would say dynamically DCA. So at the higher risk levels, you do more, and at the lower risk levels, you do less. Obviously, that's not the case right now since we're not really, I mean, the avalanche risk level is 0.465. It's actually the only crypto, well, I guess there's a couple cryptocurrencies that are up over the last month. Avalanche is one of them. XRP is the other. Yeah, I mean, if it's too much for you, which I agree, 40% is probably too much. I would, if it were me, I would DCA out to some of it out to fiat and some of it out to Bitcoin. And I would probably just pick a percentage and do that percentage over the span of a few weeks to get it to a percentage that I'm a little bit more comfortable with. 40% is a lot for an altcoin. Okay, I mean, that's a substantial amount. And I also imagine a lot of you guys are in similar positions where you have a lot of your crypto in a specific altcoin. I think 40% for any alt is way too high, to be clear. Okay, I think it's way too high. I mean, my entire altcoin portfolio right now, not including Bitcoin or Ethereum. So if you look at my whole crypto portfolio, and then say Bitcoin and Ethereum are not altcoins, my altcoin portfolio right now is only like 10%. Okay, so to have a single altcoin at 40%, you're taking on a lot of risk. So I would try to personally take some of that risk off the table and put it into something else, just so you're somewhat diversified. With that said, Avalanche has been doing incredibly well, and for me, my Avalanche is locked up until May, so I can't really do anything with it until then. But I will let you guys know what I'm doing with it when May rolls around. When I first launched it, when I first bought Avalanche, it was around $12. I did pick up a little bit before $12. I got some before. I got some right around when I got dot, and then I picked up more at $12, and then I staked it for a year in May. So, I mean, obviously it's not at its all-time high right now, but it's still a decent. It's still a decent play from $12 to $90. We'll see where it is in May, though. I mean, I don't know where it's going to be in May, so we'll see. Someone says meme coin season is around the corner. What are my thoughts on memes? My general thought, I mean, it could be a joke question, but in all seriousness, if you're knee deep in meme coins, this is not the time to be knee deep in meme coins. Okay, there's a lot of macroeconomic uncertainty right now. Bitcoin's below its bull market support band. Stock market is still below its own bull market support band. So I don't see this as an alt season scenario. Doesn't mean we can't get to an alt season scenario at some point, but this is not one of them. So I don't think meme coins are the way to go. Thoughts on the 10-year yield Bitcoin correlation? Yeah, I mean, the thing is when inflation is running high like it has over the last year or two, and you're in a risk-on environment, a lot of things can be correlated, and then they can not always be correlated. So I don't know that it's that important, to be completely honest. I think they were correlated for a time, and then they started to diverge some. I don't know that we can say too much about it because we saw the 10-year going up while we saw Bitcoin going down. So I don't think we can put a lot of stock in that correlation anymore. As Jeff says, he figured with Ethereum crabbing sideways, maybe memes will run. I think that the general thinking is that altcoins can run when Bitcoin and ETH are going sideways, but the caveat is you want Bitcoin to be up here. And Bitcoin's down here. So there's a difference, right? There's a difference between Bitcoin being above its bull market support band and being below its bull market support band. So above it, going sideways, alts can rally. Below it, going sideways, I don't know. I don't really know what to say. They're not as likely to rally in that type of scenario. So I would say be very, very careful on memes. I don't own any, by the way. Just for the record, I don't own any meme coins. But if you do, be very, very careful because this does not seem like the time to be knee deep on meme coins. And I would say that Bitcoin, I mean, we're still seeing if Bitcoin can get above its bull market support band. We don't know yet. I mean, it's possible that it could. If it does and holds it as support, there'll be plenty of time to DCA alts later. That's my philosophy here. I'd rather protect my downside risk and say, you know what, I'm going to put alts on the back burner until Bitcoin proves that it's healthy. What's the percent chance of a recession in the next 12 months? I think there's actually the Fed or someone puts out the probability of a recession over the next 12 months. I think they're saying it's currently at 8% or something. Yeah, I'm not sure where the chart is, but yeah, I mean, this one, I'm not really sure how useful it is, but here's the smooth US recession probabilities. I mean, you have to know that when we're in a phase of quantitative tightening, recessions become more likely than when we're not. That doesn't mean they have to happen. We've had plenty of phases where we go through QT and we don't see a recession, but they are a little bit more likely. And the reason they're more likely is because we're basically slave to whatever the Fed's going to do. You know, like are they going to become too hawkish and send us into a recession, or are they going to sort of maintain the right balance to not? It's a good question. I mean, this is a reason why I do think, you know, I still think that stacking cash makes sense because we don't know right now. And in 3 months, we might have a little bit more clarity if things resolve, but we don't know right now. And we don't know if the stock market is going to trend lower or if it's going to trend higher. And because I don't know, I'm not going to keep putting money into altcoins. So I would say, yeah. the probability of a recession, I mean, my thinking on it is I always assume it's relatively low, and then whenever one occurs, I try to buy through it, right? But who am I kidding? I haven't been around long enough to be experiencing that many recessions. I mean, I was here for 2020. I saw what happened in 2008. But what happened in 2008 was pretty brutal on a lot of market participants, and also what happened in 2000 was incredibly difficult on market participants. And this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to say, look, guys, there is risk involved, right? In these asset classes, there's always risk involved, and you need to manage your risk accordingly. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure you go through phases when we're in a risk-off environment of just stacking cash and trying to get yourself in a position where you can take advantage of a future drop if and when it comes. If you don't stack cash, then you don't give yourself the ability to take advantage of a potential future drop. Whether it happens or not is irrelevant. You need to plan for all scenarios. So whether we go up from here, whether we go down from here, you need to plan for the worst possible scenario. And the worst possible scenario is down, and therefore having cash on hand makes sense. I'm not saying you need to go liquidate all your positions. I'm not, but in terms of acquiring new positions, I think it makes sense to be a little bit risk off and try to accumulate some cash for a while. When will alt risk metrics be accounted for diminishing returns? Look, alt risk metrics don't have enough data to be. Maybe Ethereum does. My goal is to do that for Ethereum in the next few months is the goal. But for altcoins, not anytime soon. Just we don't have enough data for them. We can't possibly know. Since the risk metric wasn't able to catch the December dip, is it possible to readjust the risk bands? Not sure if that's even possible. It's a good question. The problem is how you navigate that, because like if you go look at the risk levels, like in 2019 we saw a similar type of a move where we rallied on up to the 0.65 risk band, and then the 0.65 risk level, and then we came back down. And if you follow a dynamic DCA approach, you would have taken some profits, but you wouldn't have taken a lot. And so the problem is if I say overfit something to a fairly lackluster bull run, then it would not have performed well during the actual mania phase that was to come later. So, it's hard to look at this and say, that this should have gone up to the 0.9 to 1 wristband, because it was literally at the same price that it was at 6 months before. And the general thesis is that the asset class trends up with time. I'm not really sure there's a great fix to the risk metric in that sense. What I do think is possible, though, is looking at these on-chain charts to try to figure out, are we actually getting new retail investors coming in, or are we not getting new retail investors coming in? And if we're not, and we're sort of seeing things trail off like this, where this is much more significant over here than what we saw back over here in November, then you could argue that, all right, maybe this move isn't as sustained as we want it to be. Okay. So no, I don't know that there's necessarily, this cycle so far would have been a lot easier if we did not go put in a new all-time high. All the profits that I took were back over here, back in late 2020, and mostly in 2021 was when I took took a lot of profits. But you take what you get, right? And the market gives, the market will then take it right back. So what I do is I just, as a long-term accumulator, and by the way, you can see it's not just me, it's a lot of people on chain. You can see this doing it. You can see them doing it right there. It's just long accumulation until we get another parabolic rally. But what I'm not encouraging right now is a lot of accumulation of altcoins, because I do see the downside risk still there, especially with other markets not looking so hot. One of the things I wanted to mention, and I mentioned this in the Telegram channel a couple days ago, is if you have trouble sitting on cash and you need to put it somewhere, gold is a possibility, right? I would say any portfolio that has precious metals in it, I think should be less than 5% of a portfolio. But for full disclosure, I do have a small position in gold, and it has performed well in risk-off environments in the past. So who knows? Maybe it'll perform well again. You can see that it did very well following the .com crash, right? Gold did really, really well. and it also did well, in 2019 and a lot of 2020. It hasn't done so well recently, so I'm not, I'm not sitting here thinking that gold's going to give great returns. And in fact, whatever gold does, Bitcoin likely will catch up. It just might take it a little bit longer from this point. But a small position in precious metals for a portfolio, less than 5%, I think makes sense. But I wouldn't go super heavy. It's just my opinion. The stock market does get better risk-adjusted returns in general than precious metals, but gold does still look, like a relatively decent play at this point. We'll see what happens. It's currently flirting with $1,900. The all-time high now is over $2,000. What's funny though about gold is when you account for the money supply, it hasn't really done a whole lot. And it's down significantly. And this is, for the gold bugs, this is the reason why I have a hard time being super bullish on gold, is and say not having it be more than 5% of my portfolio, is I look at this chart and I don't really see it as something that generally increases with time. It just loses value to inflation. Whereas if you look at something like Bitcoin divided by M2, you can see that Bitcoin generally increases with time against, even when accounting for M2. So that's why I choose to have a larger percentage in crypto over precious metals, but I do have more in the stock market than in crypto. Okay, Sergey says, do you stake your Ether? Do you think people should stake it? I do not have my Ether locked up for I know you can lock it up until ETH 2.0, whatever they're calling it now. I don't. Okay, I use my Ether. I am in liquidity pools with it, lending it, but I don't have it locked up until ETH 2.0. If that's your question. So for instance, liquidity pools I'm talking about are, you can go to these decentralized exchanges and let's say you own Ethereum, let's say you own Ether and you also have USDC or something, or an altcoin, some altcoin. You can provide liquidity and then you can basically accumulate through providing liquidity. So you can earn interest by providing liquidity to that stake pool. So I'm involved a lot in that. We have a video where I show how to do that, by the way. But there's plenty of public videos you can find, not on my channel, that talk about how to do that. And then I have it in lending platforms. I do not have any of it locked up till ETH 2.0. Concerns over the longer term decrease in Bitcoin volume. Yeah, this is one of those things that, you really want to see the volume pick up at some point. Let me flip this back over. Yeah, so the problem right now is that we're not really seeing a whole lot of volume, okay? And this has been the case for quite some time. So, at some point, I imagine we will see a lot of volume come in. We've seen a lot of volume come in before at these various phases. We haven't really seen that yet at this point. And given the risk-off environment, I am still very cautious right now. I don't think the correct way to navigate the cryptoverse is to just YOLO everything and hope for the best. I think the best way is to have positions in primarily the blue chips and have some altcoins, but at a phase like this to have cash on hand in case we go lower. And I don't say that lightly, right? I don't say that lightly because I understand the inherent risk of holding US dollars. But I also know that you can earn interest on them, and there's a lot of uncertainty right now with the stock market and with crypto. And so I want people to have some strength later on if we see the market drop, or if Bitcoin gets above the bull market support band and holds it as support, then hopefully you'll have enough cash to buy whatever altcoins you're wanting to buy. Would you expect alt Bitcoin returns to diminish over time? I don't know. A lot of altcoins are just different. Some altcoins are probably going to outperform others. So it depends on what altcoin you're talking about. In terms of the entire asset class, I think the dominance will decrease with time, but I do think we're in a phase where I would hope the dominance is going up right now. So I think the dominance of Bitcoin right now is going up, but we're generally in a macro downtrend. I do think alts will outperform Bitcoin in the future. I just don't think right now is the time they're going to do so in any significant manner. How do I manage to be in crypto and be a family guy, a family man? Um, Look, I think the best way to navigate this asset class is to become apathetic towards it. I know it's hard when the market goes down. For those of you who were here in 2018, maybe you can leave a comment and tell people like it was brutal back then. It was also brutal in late 2019. We just spent like 8 months going down in late 2019 and early 2020. And then we also had the March 2020 capitulation. We had the summer lull. We've had this most recent drop. It always sucks. It's always going to suck when these things happen. But the best way to navigate this market is to become apathetic towards it, because if you don't, then it's going to be hard to legalize life outside of it. So otherwise, it can be addicting watching the prices constantly. Okay. I feel like a lot of people change their attitude on the market based on the last 4-hour candle. But I do think it makes sense to be apathetic towards the market and to recognize there's a lot of risk involved, and to just be patient. I mean, really, the secret to crypto is it's not fancy. It's not really that fancy. It's not that complicated. There's not some super well-kept secret. The only thing is time, right? Like, time is on your side over the macro scale. And if you can stick it out for the macro scale, I really do believe your portfolio will go up with time. In the short term, it's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, if we are headed into a longer downturn, then it's going to be a while. But the best way you can protect yourself is to stack cash and to focus on the blue chips, because the blue chips will likely reach new all-time highs, whereas you don't know about altcoins. So, I think you need to become apathetic towards the market is the correct way to approach it. And also to value your portfolio in terms of its Bitcoin valuation, not in terms of its USD valuation. I think that's what I would say. Chris says, you mentioned the risk levels on alts don't factor in diminishing returns. Can you please talk a bit about how you would use those risk levels to navigate selling your alts during a parabolic rally? Well, you can always go back to the 2021 premium videos back in early 2021. If you go watch those, and basically every video, I tell people where I'm setting my stop losses and stuff on a lot of the various altcoins that I was taking profits on. So I would just recommend going and looking at that and seeing what I do. But basically, generally you should assume for a lot of these longer standing altcoins, you should not assume they can make it to their highest risk bands. Okay, so you basically need to assume they won't make it to the highest risk bands. And that's why I often say I don't buy altcoins above 0.4 risk, because I don't think they can make it to 0.9 risk. Okay, so altcoins, I think you need to be a lot more cautious on and assume that, if they're making it to the 0.7 to 0.8 or 0.8 to 0.9 risk band, then they're probably near a local top. Newer altcoins can make it to the 0.9 to 1 risk band on their first run, but later on a future run, they probably won't. Some of them will, but most of them won't. So I would assume that just over time, assume they drop 1 risk band. Is lump sum investing in the stock market better than DCAing? It is. Statistically, it is. Is there an example where you could show me that DCAing would have been better? Of course. Like if you had just lump summed everything into the NASDAQ in November, obviously that would not have been a good decision. But if you look statistically out of every possible scenario in the stock market, lump sum is better than DCA. And the reason is because the stock market does generally trend up with time. But the problem, I mean, the general problem with it is if you do lump sum everything, then, like what happens if you lump summed everything here or you lump sum everything here, right? Then it kind of sucks. So, my strategy on the stock market is I DCA into it, but if you have a large position, you can always put some of it in and then DCA the rest in case we continue to drop. The stock, the S&P is still struggling to get back above its bull market support band here in the short term, and so is the NASDAQ. So, I mean, things don't look so hot right now, but in terms of dollar cost averaging into the market, I think over the next several months, will be a good time to DCA into stocks, because there often aren't opportunities like this when we go below the bull market support band. The last time we went below it was back in the pandemic crash of 2020. So you don't get many opportunities like this. I don't know how long it's going to last, but however long it does last, I think this will be a decent opportunity to acquire positions. Do I expect Bitcoin to hit a new all-time high before Ethereum? Of course. Yeah, we always see this play out though. Yeah, I would say I definitely expect Bitcoin to hit a new all-time high before ETH. Someone says, give thoughts on the ETH Bitcoin chart. So my general thoughts on ETH Bitcoin, as I've said before, are that it's in a macro uptrend, but I think it's in a local downtrend. Okay, so macro uptrend, but in a local downtrend. The only thing that keeps coming back is you can maybe look at this sort of imaginary line in the sand and say it's trying to hold this, which is why I'm not going to sit here and say that it has to come back down to these levels. Like, I'm not going to say it has to come back down to 0.05, but it could go back down to 0.05. And I mean, maybe this is some type of long Wyckoff distribution. I mean, we've been talking about that for a long time, right? Like, if you have these like peaks in here, I think that it's in a macro uptrend where it's generally trending higher, but I do think it's in a local downtrend, and it likely will not come out of this local downtrend until Bitcoin is decisively back above its bull market support band. And you can see here in the short term, ETH Bitcoin is below its own bull market support band and unable to at least get above it right now. So I would still remain relatively cautious, and that's why I do think Bitcoin remains by far the safer play over Ethereum until we have a little bit more clarity on the market. Do I use cold wallets or hot wallets? I actually use both. I spread my risk around. I would recommend trying not to keep a lot on hot wallets, or like if you can, really you want to spread your risk around. So like having crypto in multiple places. Okay, and I have mine spread around. So that's all I can really say. I'm not going to recommend what you do specifically, but I would recommend spreading I would say for me, I find that spreading my risk around works the best. Okay, I know there's a lot more questions here, but I also I asked people in the Telegram channel if they had any questions. So let me go see what some of the questions they had were. Okay, so Dan says, I have a bunch of random alts I want to get out of. I'm down on many of them, having picked them up in the fall. If my long-term plan is to trade them back to Bitcoin ETH in the next big pump, do you recommend holding until we see some big moves to the upside later this year, or just trade out and consolidate now? I know this varies from coin to coin, but it's a bunch of gaming, metaverse, and also DeFi coins. I honestly don't have a huge opinion on Metaverse. I think the Metaverse is honestly a bit too early for those plays. As far as the gaming stuff, I think one of the issues with the gaming stuff is that you have a lot of crypto people making games to then put the crypto aspect into it. But what you really want to see is gaming people make really, really good games and then put the crypto aspect into it. Does that make sense? Like it sort of seems like to me, you have crypto people trying to make something work just to get crypto in it, rather than gaming people actually doing it as much. So I'm not. Look, it's hard to be bullish on altcoins right now. And I know I've said this for the last 2.5 months, and I sound like a broken record, but I just simply cannot be bullish on altcoins when you see the dollar in an uptrend, you see the Nasdaq and the S&P in a downtrend, Bitcoin's below its 20-week moving average. I would expect the dominance to go higher. It's hard for me to sit here and say I think altcoins are going to rally against Bitcoin in the short term. So I can't offer financial advice, but I don't think that consolidating some of those positions would necessarily be a bad thing. I've said that a few times in the past. I even did it myself recently on a few of those coins I mentioned a few weeks ago, like Maker, Uni. I went ahead and consolidated out of those positions because I don't see them doing anything anytime soon. So you could always keep a bag of them just in case, but we are still in a risk-off environment, right? And Bitcoin is the safer play. And I think you need to be patient in terms of at least further accumulating altcoins. So I guess there's a difference between accumulating more altcoins or selling the altcoins that you already have. I haven't sold any of the main altcoins that I have, but I have consolidated out of some of the positions that I had in some of the more fringe altcoins that I don't really talk about that much. So I just took them back to US dollars, some of them back to Bitcoin. So I guess it depends on what specifically the projects are. I'm not an expert at all the gaming projects or the Metaverse projects. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. And I would expect them to do well eventually. I just think we're kind of early right now. So I don't know. The gaming stuff always, is always kind of interesting because I sometimes feel like people in crypto are trying to force something to happen rather than letting the industry experts in that field take it over. But listen, like right now, Bitcoin remains the safest play if you're going to be in crypto. If you're going to have some risk in crypto, Bitcoin and stable coins, Bitcoin and stable coins. Just remind yourself of that. Bitcoin and stable coins are the safest plays until there's a bit more clarity on the macro situation. Would I be interested in doing an interview with Lynn Alden? Yeah, I'm always up for doing interviews. The wristband and the logarithmic regression band say different things. Yeah, they always do. I always stick to the risk levels. Remember, I don't trade anything but the risk levels. I don't trade market cycle theory. I don't trade any of that stuff. I just trade the risk levels. This is why I took profits in late 2020 and early 2021 because I just traded the risk levels. And I said, you know what? Everything's extended. Time to take profits. If I traded other things, then I would have different measures of success. But I don't. I mean, I just trade whatever the risk is on Bitcoin mainly. Thoughts on ADA's progress on smart contracts? So I'm being completely honest, it's pretty slow right now. I'm not as enthusiastic as I was. I mean, the problem is they launched smart contracts really before they were ready, and then they've sort of been trying to slowly get the ball rolling on them and get people to use them. But there's a lot of congestion right now in the network, and until they get layer 2 scaling solutions up, it's hard to see it. It's hard to see the FOMO returning. This is something I've mentioned in the past is like ADA is a hedge against Ethereum, but Ethereum is further along than a lot of these other projects. I've mentioned this many times before, and when I mentioned it the last time, I know a lot of people got frustrated, but look, in terms of where it is, Ethereum is further along than ADA in a lot of different regards. Not every regard. I mean, ADA's already proof of stake at least, right? Ethereum hasn't done that yet. But in terms of like layer 2 solutions, ADA is pretty far behind, and so they're playing catch up right now. And Hydra is still a few months away at the very least. So, and with Bitcoin still below the 20-week SMA, I'm not seeing a reason for a major breakout of ADA in the short term. I mean, it's still been hanging out around $1 for a long time, right? ADA, $1 always. But I think we're still waiting basically on layer 2 solutions because right now it's largely unusable. If we see another peak happening for Bitcoin, will another Ethereum tsunami follow? Yeah, I think it probably will. But I also think the next peak is not in the first half of this year, at the very least. Okay, so please be patient. Some people have already said the next peak isn't going to be till the end of 2025. I should remind you that the peak between December of 2017 and then the local top we had at 64K in April, they were closer to 3 years apart than 4. So there's no hard and fast rule to say that everything has to be 4 years apart. I do think that we will have another peak. I don't think we have to wait until the end of 2025. But I do think Ethereum will have another rally against Bitcoin after Bitcoin does put a new all-time high and goes on its own rally. But I don't envision that happening in the first half of this year. Okay, let me be clear. I don't envision a parabolic rally by Bitcoin to 100K in the first half of this year. Will I be holding Sundaeswap tokens long term? Maybe some of them, but I do think generally when you get an airdrop, which by the way, if you've been staking with ITC on March 1st, or was it March 1st? You can claim your Sundaeswap. Generally, my rule of thumb when I claim airdrops is I sell a decent percentage of them right off the bat, like that, no matter what it is. It's no jab at Sundaeswap or anything like that. It's just in general, you basically have to assume there's going to be some type of a sell-off a lot of times, and so I take some profits and I leave a bag just in case. That's how I would handle that. Yeah, I mean, I think the ZK optimistic rollup. I think that's the future. But I've said this many times, right? I think rollups are the future, and it's just taking a lot of chains, it's taking a lot of layer ones a while to realize it. Thoughts on if we still need to see a capitulation? We don't need to see a capitulation. I would be a lot more bullish if we did see one, right? I mean, I wouldn't say that we need to see one, but I would be more bullish if we saw one. Okay. You might say, well, does that make sense? Well, the point is right now, with the risk-off environment that we're in, with the dollar in an uptrend, the stock market going down, and Bitcoin still failing to get above the bull market support band, I look at this and say, well, I don't see this as super bullish in the short term, right? I would say I'm still leaning bearish / neutral at best for Q1. If on the other hand we had some type of massive capitulation and we're trending up at like March 2020 or December 2018, then I would be a lot more optimistic. But we haven't seen that. Not to say that we have to see it, but if we do see it, I would be a lot more bullish. And if, by the way, you might wonder, well, how does that change things? Like, does it change the strategy? It would. If we saw a capitulation like this, like December 2018 or March of 2020, I would be going into altcoins, okay? It's just that because we haven't seen that yet, I'm not going into altcoins. I don't know if we're going to see it. If we don't see it, then what I need to see is I need to see Bitcoin get above its bull market support band, hold it as support, and then I'll get more optimistic on altcoins. But there's two things I need to see, either one or the other, and we haven't seen either yet. So how can I put more money into alts, right? We haven't seen it go above the bull market support band and hold it as support. We also haven't seen a major capitulation. We haven't seen either of those things. Given the macroeconomic uncertainty and the risk-off environment, I don't think it makes sense to be DCing altcoins. Please check Bitcoin monthly RSI. Yeah, we've checked this before on the channel a few times. And this was one of the reasons why I was saying that you always have to plan for potential downside in these types of environments, because where we currently are, you can see we've been at these levels before, and we did have sometimes on the way up we moved up, and then on the way down we had a further sell-off. So if we have another sell-off here and the monthly RSI comes back down either to the macro bottom or say maybe like a March 2020 type bottom or something like that, you want to have cash on hand to take advantage of that if that happens. Okay, it's like if it comes down here and then it pops back up, you want to make sure you have cash on hand to buy that. So yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see. I mean, I know a lot of people are really optimistic on Twitter. There's obviously a lot of bears on Twitter as well. But be careful with altcoins, because I'm not seeing an immediate alt season right now. I wish I could. I wish I could see it, but I don't see it. All right, let me go back to Telegram because there's a lot more questions there. Any recommendations on DeFi or big data? Book recommendations? I don't know. I mean, I didn't read. I mean, I didn't read any specific books on TA. I mean, honestly, a lot of traditional forms of TA I don't even understand or know how they work. So I probably wouldn't be the right person to ask that question. What do I think about the price of Bitcoin in 10 years? Look, I mean, I generally think that over the next couple of years, best case scenario, the asset class goes to 10 trillion. Obviously, we can't see it now when Bitcoin's in a downtrend, but let's say we're right. Let's say that theory comes true, and the asset class does go to 10 trillion sometime in 2023. Or even sometime around there. If it does, then there's probably going to be a big bear market after that. Um, so, I mean, in 10 years, I mean, I guess in 10 years, the price would, I mean, it should be a lot higher than it is today, maybe a few $100,000. I don't think it'll be at $1 million, to be completely honest. I think $1 million Bitcoin is probably not going to happen until 15, 20 years. What are my thoughts on mining? Yeah, I mean, I think mining is fine. I don't personally do it. I mean, you have to weigh all the electricity costs, and you have to worry about the whole setup and everything. It's a whole operation if you want it to be profitable. It is a decent operation. A lot of people make money doing it, but you do have to constantly stay ahead of the curve and have make sure you have those up to date chips so that you can actually mine a lot of Bitcoin, or whatever it is you're mining. I tend to prefer to just buy it rather than mine it. So I have mined before, but I never really found it. I don't know. I mean, it was interesting, but it also ended up becoming like a tax headache to some degree. And I also found it was just a lot simpler to, to just buy crypto, right? Like rather than mine it. Um, it's sort of like the same mentality I have with stocks and crypto over real estate, right? Like real estate can be lucrative too, but it's just so much easier just to buy stocks. It's so much easier just to buy stocks and crypto and watch my portfolio go up rather than buying real estate and you know covering a lot of different rentals and doing all that stuff. So I just prefer the easier solution, and for me the easier solution is just buying crypto, not mining it. Should there be an FAQ thread to answer all common questions? Yeah, I think we can maybe put together an FAQ. Someone says that they were down on VeChain. Would it make better sense to wait for a move against Ethereum or take the loss? Um, I mean, it's a tough question. I mean, so if we go look at if we go look at VeChain ETH, um, I mean, it is near the bottom of its potential oscillation range. So I don't want to sit here and say that like this would be the best time to sell it. I also am not having, I don't have high expectations for altcoins in the short term. So you could maybe, I mean, maybe some of it, but I don't know. I mean, I think that against the US dollar is one thing, against Ethereum is another. So if Bitcoin trends down, the entire market will trend down. Okay. If you want to take profits on it, like let's say this, if you're going to take profits on it and you still want the risk and you want some risk, it might make more sense just to go to Bitcoin. Um, if you don't want to take on any risk, then just go to US dollars. I mean, I've said for a few months now, I still think VeChain ETH is going to bleed. I still think it's more likely to keep bleeding in the short term. Um, Potentially another 10% or so against Ethereum at the very least. So I don't really have any high expectations for VeChain right now. Someone asked that they have a lot of a certain altcoin. How do you understand the metrics if you don't have a risk metric for it? I think the thing you should do is probably just use the total crypto market cap risk. So just come over here and use this one. And just say your altcoin has this risk level, zero point 0.4. Yeah, I mean, that's the best proxy I think we can use if we don't have a risk level for it. What is my take profit strategy? I just dynamically DCA out based on the risk levels. There's a lot of videos on this. I don't want to spend 20 minutes covering it in the live stream, but we're not at those risk levels right now, right? I mean, if you go back to an older video and you look at this thing right here, you'll see a lot of these coins were in much higher risk bands back in March, April, and May of 2021. They're not there now. So I'm not taking profits, profits, right? I mean, a lot of the profits I took were a long time ago. Now I'm just been DCing for a while. And I mean, some of my positions are green, some of them are not. Matic is still fine. Avalanche is still very, very green. I mean, even DOT is, because I accumulated most of it at $3 to $6, but there's certainly buys on DOT that are red. So I'm not taking any profits right now. It's just the long DCA time, I think, for Bitcoin, not alts. Someone says worst case scenario for Ethereum, assuming a continuation of the downtrend. I mean, you have to look at the worst case scenario for Bitcoin, right? First, I mean, the worst case scenario for Bitcoin is always going back down to the regression band. I mean, the counterpoint is we didn't really make it into the upper one that much, so maybe we don't make it into the bottom one. But the 200 week is generally a good area to look at as a potential worst case scenario. We have had wicks below it. You can see we've had wicks below the 200 week before, even in March of 2020. So it certainly could happen. And the 20 week right now, or the 200 week, not the 20 week, the 200 week. And the 200 week right now is coming in at around 19.9K. So it's almost at 20K. So I mean, you have to consider that is a possibility for Bitcoin. Like, it could go to 20K. I'm not saying it has to, but it could. And if Bitcoin could go to 20K to the 200-week SMA, which always is a possibility, then Ethereum could drop the same amount or more. I mean, for Bitcoin to get to 20K, that's a 50% drop. A 50% drop for Ethereum takes it to its own prior all-time high, maybe even worse. So, and depending on how long it takes, it could be even worse than that. So I would say, worst case scenario for Bitcoin in my mind is probably somewhere around the prior all-time high. Okay, I don't think it's going to go back to 5K. I don't think it's going to go back to 10K. But I think that the worst case scenario in my mind would be around the prior all-time high. So then likely for Ethereum, you could probably say something around the same type of a thing in terms of a worst case scenario. Worst case scenarios do not have to happen. They're just a plan for the best, plan for the worst, or prepare for the, what am I trying to say? Plan for the worst, hope for the best, right? So it could happen, doesn't mean it has to. We actually do have an Ethereum regression band, and it's pretty low. I mean, I'm not going to lie. If I pull it up, Ethereum, where is it? Here. So this is the one. The last time I made a video on Ethereum and I called it the accumulation phase of a lifetime, it was when it was $200. It was right here. I made a video on Ethereum saying accumulation phase of a lifetime. This band today ranges from 356 to 735. So 358 to 738. If we expand it out, it looks something like that, right? So I don't know when we're going to go back to the band. I mean, if it takes a few years to go back there, then it could be at a much higher price. That's just where it is today. I mean, it's at the fair value according to the non-bubble fit is at it's at $514, which is kind of crazy to think about. But in May, the fair value fit to non-bubble data was at $358. And in the summer of 2020, the fair value was at $200 and something. So the fair value is going to continue to increase. By the end of this year, the fair value will probably be closer to $800 or $900 or so. But I mean, it sort of is, it's one of those things that it's so far down that it's hard to imagine, right? But I mean, that's just where it is. This is a regression band that we've talked about a lot before, and especially during the bear market, we talked about this regression band a lot. This is the accumulation phase of a lifetime back in when we were at $200. If we ever go back to the regression band again, it'll be the accumulation phase of a lifetime. I don't know when that'll be. I don't know if it'll be in 2 years, if it'll be in 8 years. I have no idea, but it'll likely be a nice accumulation phase. What other questions? Alex says he remembers that video. Yeah, it was a tough video to put out. And actually, to be completely honest, when I put out the video saying an accumulation phase of a lifetime, it was right here. And I said at the time, I was like, look, guys, it doesn't mean it can't drop down and then go up first. Fortunately for us, we just went straight up, right? And then the rest is history. And now we're up more than 10x from those prices. So here we are. If Bitcoin's downtrend continues, Ethereum has further to fall. Okay, so I'm not saying it's going to go to those levels, but you have to manage your risk. And so that's the way I manage it. Is I just think, okay, well, if the downtrend continues, alts have further to fall than Ethereum, and Ethereum has further to fall than Bitcoin. So I'd rather be heavy Bitcoin either way. That's my thinking. Okay, I'd rather be heavier in Bitcoin either way because Bitcoin has less downside risk than the other cryptocurrencies. I think we've been going for about an hour, right? Let me see. We'll go 5 more minutes. What other questions do we have? Let me check the Telegram. Guys, with altcoins, I see a lot of questions on Telegram and the YouTube with various altcoins saying, ask me about this altcoin. Look, all altcoins right now, literally every single one of them, in my opinion, we're just in a risk-off environment, okay? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you should be buying altcoins right now because I'm not, okay? If I'm not going to go buy it, I'm not going to tell you that you should, okay? So I'm not buying altcoins. I think that altcoins remain incredibly risky right now against Bitcoin and against the US dollar. Therefore, it makes more sense to focus on Bitcoin and the US dollar accumulation until the market shows strength. I don't know when that's going to be. It could be next week. It could be next month. I don't know. But until that happens, I think it makes a lot more sense to be focused on Bitcoin and US dollars. And I am still picking up a little bit of Ethereum, but I also know that there's more risk associated with it. How to track all transactions for taxes. Look, there's a ton of different taxation software out there. Okay, I mean, there's so many of them. I would just recommend using one of them. I mean, you should be able to import all of your transactions from an exchange relatively easily, and I would just do it that way. I wouldn't do it manually. What do I think about Cosmos versus Polkadot from a fundamental perspective? I prefer Polkadot, but I have nothing against Cosmos. By the way, we've added some more stuff. So on the main website here, we've added the total crypto market regression band to the main page. I also wanted to ask your thoughts on a few things, and maybe I'll say this in the Telegram channel as well. But what do you guys think about the way the setup is right now? Like, do you think it's worth having all the risk levels for all these altcoins on the main page? Or would you prefer for the main page to have a few risk levels and maybe more other things, like maybe a chart with the bull market support band on it and showing the extension from the 20-week? Like, what would you prefer for the real estate here to be taken up by? Do you like having all the risk levels on the main page? Or would you prefer to see the primary dashboard to be a little bit more like diverse in what's on there? All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up there. We've gone for about an hour. Hopefully I got to a lot of the questions. There's always next week if I missed your question. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you next time. Bye.